Will is apologetic. He's in a better space, of course, than what he was after. And as humans, sometimes we make mistakes.
But I love Will. I love Will and I love Chris. Worked that joke that I did right in there in some kind of way. I think you have to say something about it.
Two comedy legends just broke their silence, and what they're revealing about Will Smith has sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Eddie Murphy, the icon who's avoided controversy for decades, and Kevin Hart, the industry's biggest box office comedian, have independently started saying things about Will Smith that align in ways too specific to be coincidental. This isn't about the Oscar slap anymore. This is about something much deeper, much darker, and far more disturbing than anyone expected. When these two powerhouses speak up about the same person, you need to pay attention, because what they're exposing will change how you see Hollywood forever. The legends who refuse to stay silent. Let's establish something critical right from the start. Eddie Murphy and Kevin Hart aren't your typical celebrity gossips looking for headlines. These are two men who've navigated Hollywood's treacherous waters from completely different generations, yet both have maintained something incredibly rare in the entertainment industry: authenticity. Eddie Murphy dominated the 1980s and 90s with a level of comedic genius that's never been replicated. Beverly Hills Cop, Coming to America, The Nutty Professor, these weren't just movies. They were cultural phenomena that generated billions at the box office. But here's what most people don't realize. Eddie walked away from it all. At the height of his powers, when studios were throwing blank checks at him, Eddie essentially disappeared from Hollywood's spotlight for years. Why? Because he saw what the industry was becoming. The fakeness, the manufactured personas, the constant performance required to maintain stardom. Eddie Murphy chose authenticity over fame, and that decision cost him. He turned down hosting gigs, avoided award shows, and made it abundantly clear he wasn't interested in playing Hollywood's game. So when Eddie Murphy shows up to accept the Cecil B. DeMille Award at the 2023 Golden Globes after years of avoiding these ceremonies, every single word he says carries weight. Then there's Kevin Hart, the modern comedy juggernaut who built a multi-hundred-million-dollar empire through relentless work ethic and strategic business decisions. Kevin's approach to Hollywood has always been different. He didn't wait for the industry to validate him. He created his own production company, his own streaming deals, his own comedy tours that rival stadium rock concerts. Kevin's relationship with Will Smith makes his involvement in this situation even more significant. They've been friends for years. They've worked together, supported each other's projects, been photographed at each other's events. Kevin was one of the few major celebrities who could have defended Will after the Oscar incident and had it actually mean something. But he didn't. That silence was deafening. And now, Kevin's starting to say things that align perfectly with what Eddie Murphy has been exposing. The Golden Globes moment that changed everything. January 10th, 2023. The Golden Globes. Eddie Murphy receiving the Cecil B. DeMille Award for Lifetime Achievement. The room is filled with Hollywood's elite, all waiting to hear what the legendary comedian would say after years of staying away from the spotlight. Eddie's acceptance speech started typically enough, thanking people, cracking jokes, showing the charm that made him a megastar. Then, near the end, he dropped a line that made the entire room freeze. "Pay your taxes, mind your business, and keep Will Smith's wife's name out your mouth."
Pay your taxes, mind your business, and keep Will Smith's wife's name out your fucking mouth!
The audience erupted in nervous laughter. Some people applauded uncomfortably, others sat in stunned silence. But Eddie's face? Completely serious. He wasn't delivering a punchline. He was delivering a verdict. Eddie Murphy doesn't do controversy. He spent the last 20 years carefully managing his public image, avoiding drama, staying out of Hollywood politics. For him to publicly reference Will Smith's biggest scandal wasn't just unexpected. It was a deliberate choice to put Will on blast in front of everyone who matters in the entertainment industry. But the real story isn't just what Eddie said. It's what Kevin Hart did immediately afterward. Within days of Eddie's Golden Globe speech, Kevin was performing stand-up in Los Angeles, and he brought up Eddie's comment. Not to disagree with it, not to defend Will, but to expand on it. Kevin told his audience that Eddie's line wasn't just about the Oscar slap. It was a 3-part lesson on how to survive Hollywood without losing yourself. Pay your taxes means handle your adult responsibilities without drama. Mind your business means stop getting involved in other people's chaos. And keep Will Smith's wife's name out your mouth. That was the obvious reference to what got Will in trouble. But then Kevin added something that didn't get much media attention at the time. He said Eddie was really telling people to stop performing and start living authentically. Kevin talked about how the entertainment industry creates characters and then demands that performers stay in character 24/7. And when you spend decades playing a role, you can lose track of who you actually are underneath the performance. The parallel to Will Smith was impossible to miss. The pattern Kevin Hart recognized. Kevin Hart's perspective on the Will Smith situation is crucial because Kevin's been in rooms with Will that most people never see. Industry events, private parties, professional meetings, Kevin's witnessed Will Smith the person, not just Will Smith the persona. During a podcast appearance in late 2023, Kevin made some revealing comments that flew under most people's radar. He talked about how success in Hollywood requires you to become a brand, a product that audiences can rely on for a specific experience. Kevin said he'd consciously made that choice early in his career. He decided what the Kevin Hart brand would be, and he's maintained that consistently. But then Kevin said something fascinating. He talked about the difference between choosing your persona and becoming trapped by it. Kevin implied that some performers in Hollywood never made that conscious choice. The industry created a persona for them, and they just went along with it for so long that they couldn't separate themselves from the character anymore. Kevin never mentioned Will Smith by name in that interview. He didn't have to. Everyone listening knew exactly who he was talking about, because Will Smith has been performing the same character for 30 years.
Nothing.
It can't be too late. That's my money. How is somebody just gonna take my money?
The charismatic, family-friendly, drama-free superstar who only does uplifting projects and never causes controversy. Kevin recognized something about Will's Oscar night behavior that most people missed. The violence wasn't really about defending Jada. It was about defending the character Will had been playing for 3 decades. When Chris Rock's joke threatened that carefully constructed image, the character malfunctioned violently because Will could no longer distinguish between protecting his wife and protecting his persona. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Kevin has talked openly about his own Oscar hosting controversy. In 2019, Kevin was announced as the Oscars host.
Lifelong dream. There will be several changes at this year's Oscars, but none more anticipated than Kevin Hart.
Then old tweets surfaced, and he stepped down within days. Kevin handled that situation by immediately acknowledging the issue, apologizing, and moving on. The contrast with Will's handling of the Oscar slap couldn't be more stark. Will committed assault on live television, received a standing ovation an hour later, gave an emotional speech without apologizing to Chris Rock, danced at the after-party, and then spent the next year trying to manage the narrative rather than taking genuine accountability. Hollywood's manufactured product. Both Eddie and Kevin have pointed to the same fundamental problem. Hollywood doesn't want authentic people. The industry wants products, brands, characters that can be marketed and monetized consistently. Eddie Murphy experienced this firsthand in the 1980s and 90s. Studios wanted him to be the safe, family-friendly comedian who could fill theaters. When Eddie wanted to do edgier material, when he wanted to explore different creative directions, he faced resistance. Eddie's solution? He walked away. He stopped playing the game. Kevin Hart has navigated this differently. He recognized early that the industry would try to control him, so he built his own infrastructure. His production company, Heartbeat Productions, gives him creative control. Kevin plays the game, but on his terms. Will Smith's path was different. Will became Hollywood's golden boy by playing exactly the role the industry created for him, the Fresh Prince, the action hero with charm.
Hey, why should I be mad? I'm saying at least he said goodbye this time. I just wish I hadn't.
The family man who represented aspirational success. Every movie, every interview, every public appearance was carefully managed to maintain that specific image. And it worked brilliantly for decades. Will Smith became one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood history. $9 billion in box office revenue, consistent hits across multiple genres. Will Smith the brand was an unqualified success, but Will Smith the person? That's what Eddie and Kevin are exposing, because somewhere along the way, the person disappeared entirely. The performance became so constant, so total, that there was nothing left underneath. When Jada Pinkett Smith revealed in October 2023 that she and Will had been separated since 2016, it confirmed what Eddie and Kevin had been implying. Will wasn't defending his wife at the Oscars, he was defending the image of being Jada's devoted husband, he was defending the character he'd been playing, even though the marriage had been over for 6 years. Think about how insane that is. Will Smith assaulted someone on live television to protect an illusion, to maintain a persona that had become more real to him than reality itself. The standing ovation that exposed Hollywood. Let's talk about the moment that made both Eddie and Kevin realize they needed to speak up. The standing ovation Will received when he won Best Actor. Less than an hour after committing assault on live television. That standing ovation is the most damning piece of evidence for everything Eddie and Kevin have been exposing. Because in that moment, Hollywood revealed its true values. Not integrity, not accountability, not doing the right thing, just protecting one of their most profitable assets. Eddie Murphy has mentioned the standing ovation specifically in interviews, though he's been carefully diplomatic about it. He's talked about how the industry has changed, how there used to be consequences for actions, how success used to be balanced with responsibility. Kevin Hart has been even more pointed. During stand-up sets, Kevin's made jokes about how Hollywood only cares about one thing: money. He's talked about how celebrities get away with behavior that would destroy normal people because they generate too much revenue to lose. The standing ovation proved something both Eddie and Kevin had known for years. Hollywood doesn't operate on principles. It operates on profit. And when someone has generated $9 billion in ticket sales, you don't hold them accountable. You help them manage the crisis. Compare that to how the industry treated Eddie when he walked away from the spotlight. They called him difficult. They said he was washed up. Compare it to how the industry treated Kevin when his old tweets surfaced. There was no standing ovation for Kevin, no protection. Kevin had to handle that situation alone. The double standard is exactly what Eddie and Kevin are exposing. Hollywood protects profitable stars regardless of their actions and punishes everyone else for far less serious offenses. Kevin Hart's personal connection to the chaos. Kevin Hart's involvement in exposing Will Smith becomes even more significant when you understand their personal history. These two weren't just industry acquaintances, they were friends. They'd spent time together socially, supported each other's projects, and publicly praised each other's work. That's what makes Kevin's silence after the Oscar slap so telling.
Oh, wow! Wow!
Everyone expected Kevin to defend Will. If anyone in Hollywood could have publicly supported Will and made it mean something, it was Kevin Hart. But Kevin said nothing. For weeks after the incident, while other celebrities were making statements, Kevin stayed completely silent. That silence was a statement in itself. Then, when Kevin finally did start talking about the situation, he didn't defend Will. He analyzed the dysfunction that led to the violence. He talked about performers losing themselves in their personas. He discussed Hollywood's selective accountability. Industry sources suggest that Kevin tried to reach out to Will privately after the Oscar incident. Not to support him, but to encourage him to take genuine accountability. Those conversations apparently didn't go well. Will was more interested in managing his image than examining his behavior. That's when Kevin realized the problem was deeper than one violent incident. Will wasn't just someone who'd made a mistake. He was someone who'd become so lost in his manufactured persona that he couldn't access authentic self-reflection anymore. The lawsuit that made everything worse. Just when it seemed like the Will Smith conversation might be fading from public consciousness, a lawsuit emerged in early 2025 that made everything exponentially worse. A violinist named Brian King Joseph, who toured with Will, filed a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment, retaliation, and wrongful termination. According to the lawsuit,
I can barely feel my toes, and it's like all the nerves in my body are screaming at the same time.
Joseph returned to his hotel room in Las Vegas to find disturbing items including HIV medication, hospital discharge papers, and a handwritten note suggesting someone planned to return for a sexual encounter. When Joseph reported this to Will's team and hotel security, he was allegedly fired and told he was lying about what happened. Will's legal team has strongly denied all allegations and called them baseless and reckless, but the timing couldn't be worse for Will's attempted comeback. Neither Eddie Murphy nor Kevin Hart has publicly commented on the lawsuit directly, but both have made pointed remarks in recent appearances that seem to reference the situation. Eddie talked in a recent interview about how power corrupts people, how success can make you think you're untouchable, how Hollywood enables bad behavior as long as someone remains profitable. Kevin has been even more direct in his stand-up material. He's made jokes about how scandals tend to come in waves, how one public incident often opens the floodgates for other people to come forward with their own stories. The lawsuit has also reignited conversations about the standing ovation. If these allegations are true, if there really is a pattern of problematic behavior, then Hollywood's decision to applaud Will less than an hour after he committed assault looks even more damning. The career consequences nobody talks about. Let's examine what's actually happened to Will's career since the Oscar slap, because the consequences reveal everything about how Hollywood operates. On the surface, it looks like Will faced some accountability. He resigned from the Academy. He was banned from attending Academy events for 10 years.
Will Smith is banned from attending an Oscar ceremony for the next 10 years. That was the Academy's decision.
His movie Emancipation was released with minimal promotion and largely ignored. But dig deeper and you see a different story. Will's Q score dropped from 39 before the slap to just 19 by early 2024. That's one of the most dramatic falls in Q score history. Studios use these metrics to determine which actors can open movies and justify big budgets. Then came Bad Boys Ride or Die in June 2024. The film opened with $56 million domestically and $146 million globally. For context, the previous installment opened with $62 million domestically and went on to gross $426 million worldwide. The new film opened slightly lower and performed moderately well, but nowhere near the levels of its predecessor. Industry analysts noted that the film succeeded largely because it was a sequel in an established franchise with a built-in audience. Martin Lawrence's presence also provided cover, but the real question Hollywood is asking isn't whether Will can still draw audiences to a franchise film. It's whether he can open an original movie as a leading man. That question remains unanswered. Despite Bad Boys Ride or Die performing reasonably well, no major studio has rushed to sign Will for their next big project. Eddie Murphy and Kevin Hart have both pointed to this quiet industry rejection as proof of their argument. Will has enough box office protection to avoid complete cancellation, but not enough to escape all consequences. The industry is willing to let Sony take the financial risk with an established franchise, but nobody wants to be the first to greenlight a Will Smith original. What Eddie and Kevin are really exposing. So what have Eddie Murphy and Kevin Hart actually exposed through their combined critique? It's bigger than one incident. It's bigger than one person. What they've revealed is a system that's fundamentally broken. Hollywood creates personas and sells them to the public as if they're real people. Then, when those personas can't be maintained, when the mask slips, the industry either protects the profitable stars or destroys the unprofitable ones. There's no middle ground. There's no genuine accountability. There's only profit calculation. Eddie exposed this by walking away from the machine at the height of his powers. He showed that you can choose authenticity over fame, but the cost is real. Hollywood will punish you for refusing to play the game. Kevin exposed this by building his own infrastructure outside traditional Hollywood power structures. He recognized that the only way to maintain authenticity while achieving massive success was to control his own brand rather than letting the industry control it for him. Together, Eddie and Kevin are painting a devastating picture of an industry that corrupts almost everyone who stays in it long enough. An industry where authenticity is punished and performance is rewarded. Where violence is excused if you're profitable enough. where accountability is selective and justice is negotiable. Will Smith is the perfect case study for their argument. A man who became so successful at performing a character that he forgot there was supposed to be a real person underneath. A man who committed assault on live television and received applause because he generated too much money to face real consequences. The bigger truth about all of us. But here's the thing that makes Eddie and Kevin's message so uncomfortable. They're not just exposing Will Smith. They're not just exposing Hollywood. They're exposing all of us, because we're the ones who bought into the avatar. We're the ones who believed the performance. We're the ones who made Will Smith a $9 billion box office star by consuming the product Hollywood created. We wanted the Fresh Prince. We wanted the action hero. We wanted the family man who could do no wrong. And when the person finally emerged, flawed and violent and deeply troubled, we didn't know how to process it. Some people defended Will because they'd invested too much emotional energy in the character he'd been playing.
Mr. Twistle. Yeah, hi. Hi. Chris Gardner? Yeah, hi. Listen, what can I do for you?
Others attacked him viciously because they felt betrayed. Eddie and Kevin are holding up a mirror to our own complicity in this system. We reward performers who maintain the illusion and punish those who reveal the truth. We celebrate manufactured personalities and mock authentic humanity. The Will Smith Oscar incident was a wake-up call, but not just about one man's behavior. It was about an entire industry and the audience that enables it. Eddie and Kevin are asking us to look at that uncomfortable truth and decide what we want to do about it. The path forward and what happens next. So where does this leave Will Smith? As of early 2026, he exists in that strange limbo. He's not completely canceled. The success of Bad Boys Ride or Die proved there's still an audience for him in the right context.
Fletcher. Oh, shit.
These are the guys.
But he's not back to where he was either. The lawsuit has made things even more complicated. Whether the allegations are true or not, they've reopened conversations about Will's behavior and character at exactly the wrong time. Eddie Murphy and Kevin Hart's critiques matter because they came from a place of authority and experience. These aren't jealous rivals or attention-seeking provocateurs. They're two of the most successful comedians in history, both of whom have navigated Hollywood's corruption in different ways and emerged with their integrity intact. Their willingness to speak up has forced a public reckoning with how the industry operates. The standing ovation can't be taken back. The selective accountability can't be denied. Two comedy legends spoke truth to power, and that truth is going to linger for years to come. Will's next career move will tell us everything. If he chooses another safe franchise film, we'll know he's learned nothing. If he takes a risk and does something that reveals the actual person beneath the manufactured persona, then maybe there's hope for redemption. But redemption requires genuine accountability. It requires acknowledging not just the Oscar slap, but the decades of performance that led to that moment. It requires recognizing how living as an avatar for 30 years damaged him as a person. Can Will Smith do that? Can he access the level of self-awareness required for genuine transformation? Those questions remain unanswered. But Eddie Murphy and Kevin Hart have done their part. They've exposed the machinery. They've revealed the dysfunction. They've forced Hollywood and the public to confront uncomfortable truths about how the entertainment industry creates and destroys people. The rest is up to us. Do we continue enabling this system, or do we demand something better? What do you think? Did Eddie Murphy and Kevin Hart go too far? Or did they expose something that desperately needed to be said? Is Will Smith capable of genuine redemption, or is his career permanently damaged? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this breakdown opened your eyes to something you hadn't considered before, hit that like button and subscribe. We're diving deep into the stories behind the headlines. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next explosive video. Stay informed, stay critical, and remember, question everything you see in Hollywood because most of it is performance.